There we go. Welcome, everybody, to the Tabletop Express. My name is Chris Barrows, and we are here for a really fun and exciting topic tonight. I am excited to share, too, as we are here with a different group of people that have never been on the channel. So I'm going to give a warm Tabletop Express welcome to the long distance gamers. We've got Brooks, Kitty, and Lizzie with us. Welcome, everybody.
Thank you for having us
so much.
Well, let's give you a chance. Let's do this. Let's make this easy. If you could all just give yourself a brief introduction, start with you, Lizzie, and then we'll go work our way around from there. Just a little bit about who you are and a little bit about what you do in terms of video games with long distance gamers.
I'm Lizzie. We just are long distance gamers. We play games physical on the table. And I just help pretty much edit pretty much every video.
That's it. Just edit pretty much every video.
Extraordinaire.
And then Kitty and Brooks.
So I'm Kitty, and I met Brooks in about 2015, and he really got me into gaming. And ever since, we've just been working on LDG recently.
It's an expensive addiction, isn't it?
Yeah. I'm loving it.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, well, first and foremost, I gotta say, what's great here is I've got two of you, both, I believe Kitty and Brooks, you are both actually not that far away from me in this New York metropolitan area. So that's also pretty cool.
Well,
because I'm over in New Jersey. So
nice. Yeah, we're in Manhattan, right at the top of it.
Yep.
There you go. There you go. A little bit more about you, Brooks. Where do you come in here with this group?
Well, I kind of slapped this group together, I suppose, from the beginning, getting everyone addicted. So they all blame me for their financial troubles because of it now. But yeah, I have a friend in California that got me hooked on it, and he has probably around 1,000 board games. So I just kind of dove in the deep end, and ever since then, we've wanted to kind of express how we do it. Since I moved away from Ohio, which I used to live very close to Liz. We wanted to keep making it work and still be able to play like we were in the same room together. So that's kind of why we started doing this and then started to share it. So,
well, yeah. I'm so excited to have all of you. Tonight's topic, we're talking about games to play over Zoom. And I think what's in particularly cool about this one is you're playing some of you, I mean, knowing a little bit about some of the choices tonight, about to say, some of them are very much larger games that you found the way to play. So I think it's different and exciting to hear about from you. But any honorable mentions, and I'll actually start down with you, Brooks, and work your way back up, Kitty and Lizzie. Any games that maybe you thought about and then didn't quite throw onto your list tonight?
Yeah, so we play a lot of really big stuff. Sometimes that people wouldn't expect to do virtually. Whitechapel is one that's an honorable mention for my list, and I know it's one of Kitty's favorites. It's one that a lot of people don't even remotely expect can be done remotely, but we've put it through its paces and figured out a way to make it work. So that and probably Sagrada would be an honorable mention for me. Just love that.
Awesome.
I have to say really quickly also, I love this whole battle of the dudes with long hair thing that we have going.
Yeah. I will say long hair is in here, and it's not just a COVID thing, hopefully. But
quarantine's the best time to try a new hairstyle. So.
That is true. Kitty, any honorable mentions for you?
So for me, one of the ones that I actually started with remote gaming was actually Magic the Gathering. So not quite a board game, but it was really close in terms of my list. And then also I was thinking Tapestry, which is another really big game. But again, we found ways to make it work.
Hey, I that's what I actually love about your list in particular, as we'll go for this. Lizzie, last certainly not least, what is on your honorable mention tonight?
Well, besides all of the ones listed, on display back here, Pandemic is one of my all-time favorite games. I decided not to go with that one simply because a lot of people have thought about that to play remotely, and I wanted to try to open some minds tonight.
No, I love that. That's one thing we do try to do here is kind of try to break the mold. I will say, in spirit of that, for those who have watched this channel, I have not mentioned Marvel Champions tonight. It would normally be on my list if this was a true top five thing. But I did not mention it. So
we just got into Marvel Champions, and it is addictive.
Yeah, we understand.
it is, and I won't tell everybody that Marvel Champions is on this list from anyone right now, but I will just say that it is a great game for it, but it's not on my list. And I will kick us off, y'all. I want to first say again, welcome aboard the Express. Really glad to have you, and we're going to have a good time here tonight. On my list, as we kick this off, I'm going to talk about a game that probably doesn't surprise some people who've watched my channel before, but that is Quacks of Quedlinburg. And this game in particular, if you have not played it, is a fantastic little game where you essentially are pawning off not really a very good healing potion. You're kind of peddling off some stuff to your local community, and you're trying to trick them into taking this, but you got to brew this potion for them, right? And it's a push your luck game. The game has a lot of variability. The way you play it every time, the different potions have different effects when you pull them out and put them onto your actual board. But because it is a push your luck, when you get these little white chips and you're putting them on your board, unfortunately get too much, boom, it explodes. This is a game that I think is great, though, because when it explodes, you don't lose all your actions. And I think that's nice about this game. Why does this work for Zoom and over the internet? Well, if you both own a copy of this game, you can set aside all of those tokens, kind of have them right out at the count, set them aside when people take them, know the exact count that's out there, and very easily play this game over Zoom. You don't need to be staring at each other's boards in this game. You're having an understanding of what people are taking. You can say that. So for me, this works really well. I've done it once or twice, and it works. And it's a fun game. I don't think it takes too long to set up for playing remotely. And that's a big reason why for playing a game over Zoom, this one stands out to me because there's not a ton of setup time. And it is fairly easy to separate out those pieces. So for me, Quacks of Quedlinburg is the first one on my list. I don't know if any of you have played this remotely, but it works really well.
Such a great one. We actually haven't played it remotely yet, only in person. But can't wait to, because we've done stuff about the same weight. So yeah.
It's just we're waiting on them to get a copy, and then we can play it.
Yeah,
I think we should point that out, actually, that a lot of this is you really do need to consider the fact that a lot of what we're talking about, everyone has to kind of own a copy, but it's all very reasonable. So yeah, that's mine. Quacks of Quedlinburg. Fantastic game. So who do we have up next? Who wants to go?
That is me.
All right. So let's bring it to the board. What do you got for us?
Okay, so one of our main openers and closers to almost every single game night is Parade. Along with Love Letter. They kind of fight with being our opener and closer. But I just had to throw this in there. It's at almost every game day that we have. It's a really quick set collection, kind of quick, fast, really easy. You're just counting cards out. You're trying not to pick up as much as you can. If you do have to pick stuff up, it's about that set collection. You can not get as many points if you have the majority, things like that. So not heavy mechanics or anything that's too inundating over Zoom. And we started doing this from the very beginning. We started with this. And one copy works just fine. You don't have to have two per se. You can just show people cards and they can jot them down or something. Because it is nice to have a mix between some that require two copies and some that only require one. So we always like to have this one just in case new people don't have a copy. Really quick, really exciting game. We've always shown it to people. It's kind of like Guillotine, if you've ever played that.
Yes.
You just create a line and you try not to pick them up and you try to stick the next person which is with as many cards as you can possibly do that. So yeah, that's one of my favorites. One of the whole group's favorites.
Yeah, I've heard of Parade. I had not played Parade in particular, but somehow it does not surprise me to see on this list a game like that, because when you talk about a game that you don't need a second copy, it adds a tremendous value.
Yeah, it's in that set with like Arboretum. What's the other one? Black Spy, I think.
Yeah. And Chimera.
Chimera, yeah. And it's just it's the easiest to translate through Zoom. So.
I didn't put Arboretum on this list. I have that on another list recently where I got a little bit of slack because it was a gardening one and I had not played Herbaceous Sprouts yet. And I included. And so rightfully so. I got the slack for that guarding day one, but I made up for it. But I am excited because next up, I know we have Kitty's choice for her first one.
It also kind of ties in with ones that you don't need 2 copies for. You can easily play it with only 1 copy. I actually learned it via Zoom with only 1 copy, which is actually Spyfall. So that's one of my original very favorite games way back when I was first getting into the hobby. I love deception and trying to figure out, who the spy is, things like that, even though I'm horrible at it and have a horrible poker face. It's just really fun, and we find that there's not really many modifications. The only thing is honor system.
Mainly honor system for this game.
Yeah.
You do have to hold up, one person has to control that side of the game.
Right.
So you would have to kind of blindly hold up so that people know what their stuff is.
Yeah.
And have kind of a regimented, everyone close your eyes, Kitty, open your eyes.
Exactly.
Kitty, close your eyes, and the next person.
We usually have somebody almost act like a GM, kind of, like low-key, like you would in Werewolf or something in person, saying things like that for games like this, or Insider, anything where you need to have hidden information.
Yeah.
The honor system, I think that's important actually to think about with a lot of these Zoom games. Honor system's kind of critical. I don't know if it's going to be for all the games to the same level, but I do think that honor system, when you're playing online, there's many scenarios where someone's going to have to be managing the game. So I'm glad that we bring that up early. Because
you'll drop a card, you'll accidentally see when you're lining it up. You just have to be, the whole group has to be comfortable with that happening.
And it's just kind of so easy to just quickly say, oh, I saw that you were the spy. Okay, let's reshuffle, whatever.
Yeah, right.
And it's such a quick game. You can move on and keep going.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't mention it, but code names for that same reason, you can kind of do in that same, you could do that. You could hold up, okay, here's the card, but that falls in that same category for me. And again, for anyone watching, if this is your first time to the channel, this in particular, sometimes we do top 5 rank, but most of the time when I'm doing favorites list, one of the beauties is we're talking about some of our favorites. It's not necessarily like here's the be end all top 5. Yes. And I'm excited because this group has brought a lot of variety into their selections. And the last one for this first round of selections is actually going to go over to you, Lizzie, with your first game of the night.
Yes, mine is Unmatched. It is like a battle royale. You're trying to be the last one standing, and it's a hand management. So you have your hand of cards and you're laying them, you're moving, you're attacking. So it's a really fun game in general. And then just to make it work for remote play, we just numbered our board. That's actually my board right there. And you just say where you're moving to. And if you are uncomfortable with numbering it, there's actually maps on Board Game Geek you could print out, and both sides could have the same and just number a piece of paper. And it works really, really well for remote play.
I love the fact that actually you do the number. I never thought about that, but that just as a technique, but the same with accessibility as you may mark up a card. This is a really crafty way to do that. I honestly my first time seeing it. So
yeah, and it doesn't have to be permanent. You could just stick a Post-it note number on each space. What it does is it cuts down that that interfacing time gap that you get where everyone's like, no, move to the left. No, you're other left. Okay, you got the left right, but now down one. Yeah, it cuts that out, and we could just be like 14, please.
Exactly.
I love that technique because it's so simple and it applies. Again, we're talking about something now. We've been playing as we've kind of finished this first set. We're talking about playing games over Zoom, which I don't necessarily think truly ends. Like this is something that started, but we are all separated by space at some point, and this means we can continue to play games no matter where people are. Someone can move away. We can play games. So I think that's why this topic for me is really interesting. Because I'm always looking at how can we play more games. And Board Game Arena is not going to be for everyone. I play in Board Game Arena, but sometimes you want that feel. And I know you as a group all seem to feel that way, but that feel of the physical pieces is a big deal. So this has opened up that door.
That was the impetus for our entire channel anyway. It was just because that's how we were always doing it. And then the pandemic happened, and we weren't even phased when it came to gameplay.
Well, the next one on my list plays perfectly into that. Now, again, you do need to both own a copy for this one, but there really is only one person who has to manage the game, which I always think is nice, and that is Tiny Towns. Peter McPherson, who was on talking about accessibility on this channel, about a month ago actually just convinced me to get the Villagers expansion. But I will say about this game, this is a game where you are building these buildings on your map with resources. What's going to happen is essentially we're as players, we're picking up one resource that's going to go down, and every player has to play that resource because we're all trying to accomplish something. There's a solo mode to this too that's very good, by the way, if you like solo games. But that said, with this game, you can see, for example, the granary, I would need 2 yellow cubes, the brown and the red, and we need to get them on my board. It's fairly straightforward because from turn to turn, players can name that cube that they're going to do and then place it on their board. And we're managing our own boards. And because we're managing our own boards, these type of games work really well. A lot of my games you're going to find that I mentioned will have a similar thematic because it is a very easy mechanism to do, but still can be fun and interactive. In the case of Tiny Towns, it is interactive because someone is going to be part of that process of picking necessarily what we're looking for on this particular round. There's ways to offset that. The buildings have special abilities, but this one plays just perfectly over Zoom. So for me, Tiny Towns, Peter McPherson designed this game, and Aldrich Entertainment Group AEC. This is 2019, so still a relatively new one, but this is actually, to me, one that just I've done now multiple times, probably 2-3 times, and very effectively. So this falls up very easier to set up than Quacks too, which is an understatement because Quacks has a lot of different pieces to organize if you don't have an organizer. So
actually haven't even played that one yet, so I'm excited to try to get that at some point. Yeah, everyone seems to love it.
Yeah, it's definitely been hyped here lately.
It is a fun game. It is more thinky than I think people realize, and that's what's kind of fun about it. Like you're just placing a piece, but you've really got to think about where you're placing it. Because as long as you make that shape, you can build the buildings, and you want to fill up that board. But it can be challenging because you're getting points based on the buildings you're building. So you're trying to do it strategically, and you're interacting because you can essentially try to make it more challenging for your opponents. So a lot of fun in that. There is actually a building that you get unique to yourself too that can add to the fun of that game. But with that, Brooks, you've got your next pick.
So this one's kind of an under the radar game, I think. We had never even heard of it, as in the two of us, until Liz kind of threw it on the table in front of us and was like, you want to try it? Perfume. It is not one you would expect to really be addicted to, but from the very first play, it's all we played for almost like 4 months straight.
A couple of months, yeah.
And that was with me having the only copy.
We did not even have a copy at that time.
We just used our own D6s and...
Yep. So it's a really simple game of you're trying to appease customers who have very specific perfume requests with specific floral notes. Dice rolling to try to acquire the right ingredients to buy or to craft the perfume for them. It's really simple mechanics. But we were able to do it with just one copy, us just sitting there, having a pad of paper and being able to, jot down exactly the combinations that we had. We had regular dice. So Liz would write out like a chart. So for instance, the dice in Perfume have icons on them. And so we would have regular dice that 1 means this, 2 means success, 3 means fail, and so on and so forth, so that we could just roll our regular dice so we weren't just sitting there. So that's another thing you can do when only one person has a copy, so that the other side feels like they're still included and they're not just kind of sitting there with their arms crossed.
Right.
And it got us hooked, and we instantly got the game. So
yep. And something that did make it easier for remote play is the perfumes in the middle section. We would separate them. And like the top perfume would go like towards the top, and then the middle would be in the middle, and the bottom would be towards the bottom.
Exactly.
To try to make it at least a little bit easier visually.
So we could just glance at the board and know if it's shoved to the top of that little, that tableau section, you would know that's a top perfume because there's top, middle, and bottom notes to the perfume. So yeah, little tiny hacks like that, just so that it's visually easier to see, makes a world of difference on the Zoom game. So
no, and I have heard of this one, but it's not one I haven't heard about it a lot. I know it exists. It's basically what I'm saying.
It's ridiculously fun. I would walk by it in a game store just because it should not be as fun as it is.
So if you were making an underrated list, you might throw it on there.
Oh, definitely.
I would walk by it. And my next pick, I would walk by in a game store too. So I'm going to say the same thing when I get to that.
For different reasons, though.
Yeah.
I think Liz knows what one is.
I think I know it too.
Well, Kitty is up next, not you. So I am excited to hear what Kitty's picked. I think a lot of people are going to like what Kitty's picked, actually. That's a good one.
I actually chose this because it's very much sort of what I think is kind of like that sweet spot in weight between like a total intro game and maybe like a mid-weight. You know, we've been able to play it with my family, including some gamers and some non-gamers even remotely, with 2 copies, and that's Sagrada, which is a gorgeous, beautiful game, and you're creating, you know, your cathedral, your stained glass walls, and it's basically dice drafting, sort of puzzly, you know, and it's so much fun, and it's so much fun over Zoom.
Yeah, because even if they don't have the copy, you can just take pictures of the goal cards.
Exactly.
That simple. Send it to them.
Exactly.
Really easy to dice draft.
Yeah, and it's a good way to introduce people to certain mechanics, like you know, you have your private objectives, you have the tools out for everybody to use, public objectives. It's like that next step up, I think, in teaching people games and bringing people into the hobby.
What's great about what you just said too is we had a video on here the other day, and we have an ongoing series of games to introduce entry level, so to speak. And what's really neat is we were talking about by the mechanisms of the game, and you just talked about why Sagrada is great for a variety of reasons, not just for playing over Zoom, but honestly, it does teach a lot of that. And so I think I have played this game probably once in my life, but it was very enjoyable. I don't own it, but I think I played it at con. It might have been PAX Unplugged, which is the only real con I ever get to go to. So, but yeah, a great game, and it looks beautiful. Let me just say that it's a game that obviously has table presence, so to play it over Zoom makes complete sense because you want to look at it, right?
That's a good way to draw people in.
It definitely draws people in. There's no question. You know, the next game on our list that you've got, Lizzie, is one that I admit I have not played, but I have heard 20 million things about. So I'm actually excited to talk about it.
It is a really good game. It is totally an economic building game. Totally, you're building your economic empire.
Building. I love it.
It's a hand management game, and you have each card. There's only a variety of maybe 10 different cards, and they're listed in the rule book, which is really nice. And you just will play a card, do its action, and try to have the most points at the end. But it is Concordia. Sorry, I didn't say that first. But it is a really fun, a really beautiful game, especially the Venus with the cover is a lot better than the original Concordia. But for remote play, we actually played this again with just me having a copy with a laptop camera pointed down towards it. And the biggest change we did was we had a little dry erase token, and we had it for that market with the cloths and the coins. You turn them over, and then you get so many coins lifted up on that, and then you would just write down that number, the total number there. But it's really, you just collect your resources, you collect gold, you spend gold, and you just try to come out ahead. And I'm explaining it really poorly.
But this is definitely a 2-copy game. We played it first with only her having a copy, and it was just so much work with sending us pictures of the cards and the tableau, and we had to ask her, what is that city there? And
again?
We had to use a lot of dry erase tokens, which is one of our favorite things to use during gaming. But
I'm think as you're saying this, I'm also in my head, but the ability to use dry erase, just anything to make this type of gaming work better is really effective, because you don't necessarily need, you know, if you're counting money, you can write your money down. Okay, erase. I spent 3 money. So the dry erase components is huge. So I'm actually really glad you mentioned it. It's not a common conversation that I end up having, but I think that works for a lot of games, even when you're in person. In reality, if you didn't have money, you could still do it that way. If your dog ate, you know, your baggie of any game's form of finance. So. I don't know.
Pretty much.
Yeah, and we stumbled across these. They're little tiny round dry erase tokens.
Right.
They're perfect.
Yeah.
For any game. So.
No, it's true. Again, what I love about this is we're talking about some very different topics that I don't usually hear about from most people on the show. So this is exciting to me. What's exciting to me too is my third game, and we'll do 5 each for those watching. So we've got a bunch more coming. My third game is one that I love. I love it for a few reasons. I can give people a copy of this because it is essentially a flip and write, and I can say, okay, here's a piece of paper. Now you can play the game with me. And this actually has a fantastic app. It has one of the best apps I have ever seen in terms of a board game. Honestly, it's really good on the phone. But this is not about playing from the phone. It's about playing the physical versions. And this is Cartographers.
Oh, yes.
One of our favorite games of all time.
Yeah,
One of their favorite
so
games.
much fun. They've got, by the way, another one. Their Kickstarter will be kicking out the latest edition pretty soon to us. I think early June, I believe, or early June or July. It's not that far away. I don't think it's far away.
Very exciting.
Anyways, Cartographers. We have a piece of paper in front of us, and you can see there's a few things going on. I have poorly written many symbols on my copy on the right-hand side. I am not an artist, but we are going to score in multiple different ways. And if you actually look at the image in the middle, which is from Board Game Geek, Taugeson, it was the Board Game Geek user, you can see there's a variety of scoring cards on the right. Every game is different because the scoring is going to vary. There's 4 seasons in every single game, but the scoring is going to vary in every single game. So you're going to be trying to accomplish different things. You might be trying to do something as simple as collect as many different groups of fields as possible, or forests, or whatever it may be. You've got something else going on this board that I should note, that is these mountain areas, and sometimes you're forced to go on them. So that is something that can occur. Last but not least, there's my really poorly drawn goblins that you can see in the bottom right. And sometimes goblins come out and your opponents get to write on someone else's board. So that's the only weird thing over Zoom sometimes. Like, okay, you got to show someone's board and say, okay, write it there. You have to describe it. But the neat thing about this game is because the season cards, which essentially control the pace of the game, are able to be controlled by one person, you can do this as long as people have a pencil and a piece of paper. Hypothetically, you could make one of these out of your own piece of paper, I suppose, if you ran out. But I have enough copies of this that we've done this, and it works really well. Again, you've got your own scoring pad. So for me, Cartographers plays great over Zoom. It's fun. It is interactive because of those goblins. And I think the interactive part is the big thing you're going to hopefully notice from me. I do like interactive. I think it can still be brought by a Zoom. And for me, that's really important. I like I don't necessarily dislike when we're not interacting all the time, but a little interaction can make the Zoom experience all the more better.
Yeah, for sure. And that's actually the reason that's one of our most favorite games. It feels like it kind of transcends roll and write.
It's bigger than it is.
We do love that whole interacting because of the monsters. And we actually have just taken a picture of the board itself and sent it to people, and they've used it on an iPad with a stylus. So
that's a good point.
And like color coded the stuff because the different symbols are color coded anyway, technically. So yeah, it works so easy on different platforms, whether it be like a print and play for someone or iPad, or such a good.
And if you go to Board Game Geek, you can print out. There's two versions of the map, by the way. I didn't show the other one, but there's one that's got like this whole cavernous hole in the middle of the map, and it makes it even harder. So you could play. Plus, the expansion is going to give us even more maps.
And I don't know about you, we've played it about 50 times, and we've drawn the ruins that you have to draw to be able to mark on those certain spaces like 4 times.
Like,
we never get them. So yeah.
No, this one's great for that though. So for me, it's a very easy pick for me to include this in the list. It's a great game, and again, if you like solo games, guess what? You could solo this and have a lot of fun with this yourself too. So that's a great one.
Okay,
Brooks, I believe you are up next with your third pick.
My next one has a hideous box. I would walk by it without even looking back in any game store. I never would have picked it up if Liz hadn't shoved it in front of us. But it's one of my favorite games ever. It's Ethnos. Really cool area control, variable powers for the different factions. So you have all these different kind of creature types. They all do certain kind of card mechanisms based on their faction, whether it's retain cards in your hand or pick certain cards up or move things along a certain track. So easy to pick up, really cool when it comes to all the different powers. And we didn't have a copy when Liz put this in front of us again, which is a theme. She likes to try to put new stuff in front of us all the time. Not that we don't already have enough games, but yeah. And the dry erase tokens we talked about, she would write how many, because you have to actually, to control an area, you stack your little stackable tokens on top of each other. That can be a little hard to kind of discern. Like even as you're sitting here looking at the picture, of course, that's kind of a far away version, but you can't quite see how many are stacked in each region. So she would just put a dry erase token there with like 3. So you would know you would have to beat 3 because you obviously have to beat in majority anyone else who's in that area to control that spot and get the points at the end of the round. So tiny little hacks like that make it a lot easier. It was a lot easier with 2 copies just because there's so many different cards. But yeah, it was really easy learning curve. So love this game. It always comes out.
And I'm guessing if Lizzie shared it with you, you must like it too.
Oh, yeah. We bought it instantaneously. It's one of our favorite games now. We have a lot of crossover. We have very little we disagree on. Liz isn't a huge roll and write person, so she'll differ from us there. And I'm not a huge, super heavy Euro person, but that's changing quickly, so I can't even say that anymore.
And I'm not too much into abstract.
She likes
now
everything.
I am, so yeah.
So I guess I'm the only hater still.
We're getting you there. We're getting you there.
But Kitty, I have to tell you, because the next pick is one normally I've heard of them. I've had some semblance of them, and people can yell at me for not knowing about this one. But this one, when I saw it, I was like, wait a minute, have I heard of this? And I could not remember if I've heard of it or not, but it definitely caught my attention. So I'm dying to hear about your pick, just because it thematic to certainly a certain time of the year every few years there that we're going to go through. But if that doesn't give it away.
I was going to say, I think I know what it is.
I don't know, because I wasn't aware of it, so I don't know if that sets off everyone, but if some people may know. And there's a few around this theme that I've seen, but I have not necessarily seen one that was well done that I've had a chance to play. I have not played this.
Well, this one is sort of representative of quite a few that we like to play if only 2 of us are playing.
I know what it is now.
And also being able to do sort of like a card drafting. And this is Campaign Manager 2008. And in it, you're recreating that election. So one's Obama, one's McCain. We usually fight over who gets to be who. But we just really love it. And we also really love Solified and a couple others.
Yeah, so Solified is the same exact thing as this. It just has some mechanical issues, which is why this is probably the better.
Just because this one seemed to be more evenly balanced in terms of the decks that you can make, because it is, you craft your deck and then you have your variables that come into play.
And it's tug of war.
And it's a really cool little thing on there that I loved, because I was a political geek growing up, is you can see sort of like the map and your percentage as you race to 270 votes. Cool. So it's really cool.
What's the where does this fall on the difficulty level in terms of just teaching?
It's definitely, I would say, one of the higher ones to teach remotely. In person, I don't think it would be. I would think it would be sort of midweight.
It's pretty much just like the basic deck builder mechanics and then synergy. So if you're pretty used to making your cards work synergistically, kind of like, I always go back to Magic because I've been playing it since I was a tiny child, and I'm no longer a child. But if you're used to the synergy from Magic, it's very similar. You just want to make sure you play stuff at the right time and wrestle control away from McCain.
I find it I just find it interesting when you can pull something like elections in and potentially, again, I'm always interested. What can we use to teach certain things? And there is still things to learn, I think, from a lot of these games. So when you hit the election theme, I'm always fascinated by that, because anytime we could teach people, regardless of where you fall, about the electoral college as an example. Exactly. Well, okay, we're playing a strategic game, but okay, New Mexico doesn't seem that important until New Mexico wins you the game.
Exactly.
The other thing is it has historical facts too, like on the cards and everything, which is also really cool.
Well, that is neat. That's cool. That's like with Wingspan, when you see the bird facts, I always get really geeked out about those silly bird facts. But I know we're not talking about digital version, but in the digital version, you hear bird sounds, and it's really cool.
Yeah, I heard that there was a soundtrack you could get to play in the background for tabletop versions too.
There's an app actually too where I can scan the bird card and it makes the bird sound.
Okay, that is cool.
I don't know if that's official app or not. I just know there's an app on my phone that does that. But enough about Wingspan, because I don't, unless someone has Wingspan on the list, you have something that is not Wingspan coming up next.
No. Although it is nature themed and it teaches you scientific names of plants. Does that count as educational?
There's education in that, yeah.
So, sorry about that. My pick is Petrichor. It is a card management area control game. And it is just a really fun, you play cards to get water droplets into clouds, to get water droplets onto the plants. And then you're betting on the different seasons. And when the harvests happen is when the scoring happens. So you could either have one scoring in the entire game, or you could have a scoring every round. So it's a really cool variability with that. And then how we hacked it for remote play was really simple. We did our dry erase tokens and did 1 through 9, and we just referred to the tiles by 1 through 9. And so that's it.
This was definitely a 2-copy game. When she only had 1 copy, there was a lot to look at, because each individual plant type has its own scoring mechanism.
Yes.
If you only have 1 copy, you do have to send a picture of the plants themselves. That way you know how they score. But with 2 copies, it was a breeze. It was so much easier. So
I think it's one. There's 2 things that stand out for me just from this conversation tonight, and I'll repeat it, which is dry erasable anything. Obviously, it's huge, right? But some games we've shared a few. You don't always need 2 copies. Or you always don't always need 2 full copies, but sometimes 2 copies just makes your life easier. I got my, as I call it, my shelf of Shem behind me. I would not try to play Raiders of the North Sea with someone necessarily over Zoom, like as a first choice. But if I was doing it, my goodness, we would need multiple copies. There's no question that would be a task in itself. Nor am I trying to play Scythe over that. But I'm just thinking about the games I see behind me. But again, I think these are really interesting takeaways, just because I don't know that everyone thinks about that. And a game I'll tell you both. I tell you all 3.
Really quick, surprisingly, I do have to say almost every game, but I think 1 on all the 3 of our lists, we have played with 1 copy to start. So you've tried it all. It just hasn't always worked. It's a learning curve. It will work. You just have to have a high patience to do it.
Yeah,
because you're taking the phone out, snapping photos.
Yes,
so things like that.
Yeah.
By the way, I did pose the question out to all the channels listening, and that is, we're on Twitch right now, Twitter, and YouTube. And I asked what's some people's favorites, and we've got Parade is our all-time favorite of Zoom. Love it from the theme, the art, and we just have so much fun chatting while playing. So we've got a shout out to Parade there. Thank you for sharing that. Appreciate it.
Yeah, a game that should take about 20 minutes usually takes us an hour, just because we talk and threaten each other a lot during it.
Well, the next game on my list is a 2-player one, and I think 2-player over Zoom sometimes works really well, because it's fairly easy to manage. You're usually playing with someone who is prepared for that. But for me, it is one of my favorite games. It's in my top 10 if I was to have a top 10 list. And as you were talking about dry erase, I was thinking about this earlier because I say you don't necessarily need two pieces. You don't need necessarily two copies for this, as long as you've got some way to write it down. And that is Targi. Honestly, it's a fairly straightforward option. Okay, I want to put a piece here. I want to put a piece there. Thinking of the methodology that you're talking about, that could even, it's as simple as, even without it, the top being 1 and then working your way around, and they all are numbered. And you can track what you have, track your goods, cross off, go along the way with 1 copy. With 2, a little bit easier because you can put your pieces aside and say, okay, I've got this. But Targi is a wonderful game if you've not played it. It is a 2-player game where you are placing these meeples down on the outer edge. The outer edge spaces all have capabilities, and they include taking something, a type of resource, to being able to move any of the center pieces to another space that is free. The caravan, as an example, on the left, you don't know what you're going to get, but you get some goodies. So there's a lot of different things in this game. But what's great about this is you're going to then place pieces in the middle of a board based on the intersecting points. This is a great 2-player game. And there's take that in it, I like to say, but it doesn't feel like take that because you don't really feel that bad when you do it, nor do you feel that offended that someone took that spot, because it's all going to happen. Targi works this way, though, because you're literally just going to say, okay, I want to place on, say, spot 3, which would be the third one at the top, the third one at the top. And you could, and again, these are actually numbered cards technically because it wraps around. What's neat is fairly visible in what they do. You can actually flip them over and they'll actually tell you what they do. I don't have them on that side here. They have the actual instructions of what each outside spot means. Ultimately, if you want to have your tableaus even shared, because you're building a tableau of 3 rows of 4, you could hypothetically agree that you're going to show your tableaus on occasion. You could agree to it, something like that, especially if you're teaching. So this one over Zoom works really well. I'm going to tell you, after you've talked about the dry erase stuff, all the more reason I think, oh, a nice dry erase board next to me. We can just mark down a money section, a victory point section, and kind of keep track along the way. Because there is a robber component. And when the robber potentially comes around, he causes some trouble. And if you don't have enough, you may have to give up a victory point. And so there's a few reasons why that comes into play. But Targi, I love this. I don't know if you've tried this over Zoom, but it works great.
We haven't tried it over Zoom yet. I just got a copy of it, though. So we're hoping to do it.
And I've played it. And I could have sworn that actually the ones that go around, I actually thought that they were numbered themselves.
They
I remember them being.
So they are. You don't see it on the ones up here, but if I was to flip them over,
on the other side is numbered.
On the other side, it will actually tell you what they do. It will say, for example, take one date, and therefore that's number whatever. Or it might show it in the corners on these, but I believe it is the other side if I'm not mistaken.
And also, when it's kind of a tableau like that, similar to code names, we tend to go like A through F or whatever on the side, and then 1 through 7 on the bottom. So we can just say A4, B3, and so on and so forth. So
either way, there's just so many ways it works. So for me, it's huge. Speaking of some of the games, actually are some pretty big ones. To say the least.
Yeah, so my next one is actually a really big game, and I'm surprised it works as well as it does over Zoom. Our very first time was trial and error, but we've made it over that hump, and it's such a breeze to play now with 2 copies. It's Teotihuacan, if you can believe it. Just a stunning rondel worker placement building and various other ways of getting points. The main mechanic, which is in the middle, which is building the pyramid. There's moving up the temples on the side. There's Avenue of the Dead. There's just tons of different ways to get points here. And it's the cards that go around the outside of the board are numbered, which makes it really easy when you're moving your pieces around, because you can just, if it's over Zoom or in person, it's a lot easier to just kind of say, I'm going to go to 4, and then I'm going to do this action. So it's really nice. And since your workers are dice, it's easy in that sense too, because you can say I'm moving my 6 die to 4. And so it makes it really quick and easy that way. Yeah, and there's hardly any rules overhead when you know how each individual, because the cards that go around the outside there are the different kind of buildings or resource sections. And so once you know how each of those works, it's so quick. Turns are super fast. So yeah, that's one of the other reasons we like it. It's a big kind of table hog of a game, but your turns are lightning fast and it's a lot of fun. So
I would have never thought about this over Zoom. So I love that you mentioned that's one of the things I loved about this list was there was just ones that you're showcasing how they can.
Let me
I
tell
think
you,
a lot of excuses.
We took a deep breath before we did it the first time. We were like, okay, we got this.
And the biggest struggle we had was with the different types of masks. So there was actually a picture in the rule book, and we just numbered them 1 through 7, I think.
Yeah.
And we just referred to them as mask 3 from there on out.
They're not technically color coded, so you have to be like, okay, it's the green one, but the one with the feathers and the grass. So that made that easier.
So this one was probably a little bit more challenging than some of the other choices, but again, it still proves the point that most games have a way to be played. It's just a matter of having that creativity to kind of find a way to make it work. Well, that said, Kitty, you've got a pretty good choice of your own.
Yeah, so the next one is kind of similar to Ethnos maybe in some ways because it's area control, but it also has a little bit of like backstabbing in it, which is kind of a theme in my picks.
Well, I know what this is.
Which is Royals, which is another game that Lizzie just threw at us, or, I begged because I saw the historical theme. And in it, you're just vying for control in 17th or 18th century Europe. And it's a really great game. And I literally was like, my heart was racing even before we had a copy playing it. Probably Lizzie's was too, just by needing to hold up so many cards for us.
And in the beginning, we played it, it's as simple as Liz's version is called like a boogie board. It's kind of like an Etch-a-Sketch, and you just kind of you can write and erase on it really easily. Again, kind of like a dry erase board, very similar. And we would just write down what cards we had and keep track of it that way. Yeah. Luckily, you just have to look at the board and you can see where you're going to put your stuff on that really easily. So, yeah,
I have not played this one. I recognize it. It looks. This is one of those one that I think looks great on the table. That would catch my attention if I walked by.
It's a really strong area control. You should look into it if you really like area control, because, like she said, it's that excitement from the possibility of backstabbing and taking control back in that way. It's great.
Yeah, plus I feel like it's a great entry level game too. So like you can play it with non-gamers even.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, the next on the list, we've got you, Lizzie. We're working for these. We've worked for these actually quicker than I have to say. I'm impressed. We're quicker than I expeced.
If you knew how much we normally run our mouths, you would really be impressed.
In all fairness, you're talking to the person who ran his mouth about arboretum on a gardening thing. So trust me, you're fine. Totally fine. But Lizzie, what do you got here with your next pick?
I got another battle game. It is Niroshima Hex. You place your tiles down, and either you will play a battle card, or it will fill up until the map is full, and then a battle will take place. Just to hack it for remote play. Both sides having a copy, I just put the tiles on the map like so. And they will just say, hey, I'm playing my whatever name it is, and I will place it on 14, for instance, because we have them numbered again. And then they'll just say, I'm pointing it towards 11 and 10, whichever direction it will be.
And then Liz can probably show you, I don't know if she has it close, but another little hack that we've come up with that just has changed everything for Hex games, which I'll be mentioning in my pick also. We have a hex tool, so that each side of the hex is numbered 1 through 6. And we can say moving, it makes it shorthand. We can just say, if I'm moving multiple hexes, I'm moving 1, 4, and 6. So you know which sides of the hex the person is moving out every time really quickly. And that's another way that we can use that hex tool, is because I've only played this one once, and I said horrible things about it, and I promised her I would revisit it. But I believe you have to face out certain sides of the hex with this, right?
Yes. Yeah, some like you'll have melee attack on 3 of the sides, so you have to determine which sides those will face out of.
So it makes it easier when we have the hex tool up. We even put a picture of it up on the screen and just be like, she's like, I'm shooting out my 4. And it's like, okay, and we know which direction that is without having to point.
I hope people watching are taking at least the tips away on some way you've made these games more playable, because you've dropped a lot of knowledge. And at the end of this video, by the way, no matter where you're at, just so you know, when we get to the end, we're live right now, but if you're watching when we're not live, there's going to be a link, so you can make sure you can go check them out, and there's a link in the description. So please make sure you check out. They've got some great stuff going on, and obviously their focus here is this ability to play these games remotely and from a distance, and it's just really cool. Which is a big reason, again, why when the opportunity struck, I was so glad to have you all on the show. So as we're kind of going into the next batch of games here, which is, I believe, our last set. So we're at our final ones each. I just want to take this moment to say thank you. Appreciate all the knowledge you've already dropped, because I really think people have probably learned something already. That said, my final pick of the day is a fairly obvious one. I'm going to be honest. This one is something that probably won't shock anyone that I've said it. And that is not it.
That is a great game, though.
That is a great game. But
Game.
it is this one that I'd like to talk about.
Fantastic.
I was going to guess this one too.
Yeah. So welcome to your perfect home here. Look, this game, there's a few reasons I love this. First, let me just talk about the game itself. We are flipping over cards. There's 2 decks of cards. One has a number, and one has an action of sorts that you'll be taking. It might be filling in one of these beautiful pools. It might be building a fence. You might be putting up the value of the real estate. There's a variety of actions we have the chance to take here, all to collect the most potential points at the end of the game. And the beautiful thing about this game is when you look at someone's board in this game at the end, it's very easy to go, how did you go that direction? I went this way. You really take a lot of different actions. But all you need is someone to have these pieces of paper. And as long as I have it, I can run the game. This is the first game, and that's why I actually included it here. This is the first game I played after COVID-19 kind of stopped gameplay with my game group, and we played this game. I taught it to someone in the same night. We played like 5 games through, and it's so easy to do. You could teach someone this game very quickly. The nice thing about this game is thematically, there are a variety of expansions. I own them all. So I gave a copy to everyone. They honestly took it. They put it in a sleeve so we could play it, because they didn't, we kind of share our board game library with one another in that way. And we've played this game. This has an app too, by the way. And actually there's an app, plus there's a PDF, I think a working PDF on Board Game Geek that you could say, here's a link, and you can actually use it live. Nice. So
that's cool.
This game for Zoom, it is terrific. It is a fun game. It is a game that I won't play necessarily like on repeat for months and weeks at a time. I definitely, I don't want to say get tired of it, but I need to go to something else. But it's fun.
We can't agree with you more. It's one of our absolute favorite roll and writes. And another little tiny hack, you can get one kind of affordable, is a laminator. We actually, Liz and then us both have a laminator, and we just laminate stuff and we'll just send it to people. So then they have their own dry erase version of it. And we play Welcome To, especially like with her mom.
Oh, she loves it.
I literally can just hold my phone over the cards on FaceTime and flip them. It's that easy. Yeah. You don't even need a camera setup for most.
Well, I don't know if it's behind me, actually. I'm looking. I don't see it, but in the Imperial Settlers Roll and Write, same thing. It's laminated for
exact thing. We have that too. We have literally every roll and write, I think.
Well, I will say I laminated that one because it had a campaign mode, and it killed me that I'd have to ruin the camp.
We said the same thing. We said, why? I don't want to ruin the campaign, so we laminated it.
No, because you reuse those. That's not the point. We're not here to give tips on how to not do campaign and destroy it. We could apparently. But yeah, welcome to my pick. Your pick, I will say, is a big one. And I own the game that you have, and I've played it sadly way too small amount of times.
Well, Liz is holding up she put on the
I'm like, I'm just gonna put this up there.
It made this game playable like you would not even believe it.
I was wondering how you made this I'm not to delay your answer, but I saw this on the list and I was just like, I gotta hear this story.
So
okay, not to do a plug, but I've actually done a how to play remotely video on this. So if you ever want to check it out,
we'll drop a link in the description. We'll drop a link in the description of that one too. So
if you can believe it,
trust me, I need to see that as well.
If you can believe it, it's Gloomhaven, and it's one of the easiest games for us to play remotely. I'm not exaggerating when I say it's as easy
as playing
Welcome to remotely. I'm not even kidding. But you have to do some work first, the very first time you do it, and both people need copies. I know it's an expensive game, but it's worth it. I'm not kidding. It's one of the I complain about game prices a lot, but this one I think is worth all that's into it. I can't even tell you the hours we've sank into this thing. So we play this almost every week. We try to play one campaign every week if we can, if work and filming doesn't get in the way. But the saving grace is the hex tool that Liz held up on her screen.
That changed our lives.
It changed our lives because, as you can see also in the top left corner of that picture, we have card holders to kind of help condense everything because there's a lot with Gloomhaven. But it's so for anyone who doesn't know, it's a supreme dungeon crawl. You're just fighting your way through hordes of stuff, probably dying half the time, unless you're getting rules wrong like we did in the beginning.
But, we never mess up any rules. Never.
But the hex tool, if you can jump back to Liz really quick, I do want to show it because it is what made the game playable.
Well, it's on the picture too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it is. So depending on what hex you're moving, all we have to say is I'm moving my character 1, 2, 4. And it's so much easier for both people then to just move the stuff. Liz, on her side, takes care of the monsters and their attack modifier cards. And then that way she's doing a part of the manual work and we're doing a part of the manual work. And so we kind of split it up amongst the people who are playing remotely with us. And then we can just all move everyone's characters along. We always know where everyone is.
We keep track of everybody's perks and things like that.
Yep, exactly. We keep track of everyone's decks. So I actually will have her hand of cards and a card holder, like little hand looking things that hold the cards fanned out. And then she'll say, we name, so each card has a name. So
Burning Stick.
So we'll just say the first name of both of each card. The first one we say is what's on top. So if your card is burning something and stick something.
Oh. I have it up. We have
possession and gnawing.
Yeah.
So you would say, if you have possession on top, we just say possession gnawing. If it's the other way around, we would say gnawing possession. And then we know what order the cards are in, and we know what to pull out and put on the board. So it makes it so quick. It's literally like we're in the room playing together. I can't even express how much this game kind of dissolves the divide between us, which is important because we haven't got to see each other in person in a really long time. We used to visit off and on quite a bit, but with everything as it is right now, it really helps because we get so into it and it's so immersive. And if you can teach yourself the little things in the beginning that will help make it easier, it's going to be more worth it than you can imagine.
Yeah, it feels so epic.
Yeah.
I will say one. We did get a comment. Great show. Thank you for sharing your ideas about remote play. Great game picks. So I do think again for those who tune in later, they're going to pick something up because taking you kind of dispel a myth with this one. I think it's critical. Mm-hmm. Just because a game is large does not mean it is not playable over the internet in Zoom. And what many people lost and they said is I missed the physical, kind of picking up of the piece. with a board game, and you're bringing that in a way that I think is really fun and unique. So well done with that choice.
And while yes, it's ported to the online places, there's just nothing like your whole group cheering because you just defeated the big boss and you knock him over, and both people, you're touching the things, and it's just it's something that you don't want to miss out on. So that's why we make sure we keep that essence in everything that we play. So.
Yeah, I want to go over to Kitty. I don't know if you froze over there or if it's just on my end, so I just want to make sure.
We did freeze. Give me one second.
That's all right. That's all right.
We can do little dances to distract.
Just jump to Liz really quick.
Tell you what, I'm going to jump over to Liz real quick and let you potentially jump in and right back out and right back in. And I'm going to go over to you, Lizzie, and we're going to go to your pick just to streamline this process.
Sounds like a plan. Well, my pick is Post-Human Saga. It is a game that definitely benefits from multiple copies, although we started it with one. This is a post-apocalyptic, you know what I'm saying? It's a game where you're going out and you're trying to survive. You come across mutants, and it's really fun, really energetic, and it's so hard to just put it away because you want to read the stories. This is the saga version, not the original version. And so there's stories that you can get every scenario, and you manage your resources, and you come across some landmarks, which those are those little circles, and you can just get unique things, and it's really fun.
I like the I'll say, hopefully we resolve the technical issues that happen sometimes with streaming. It is, wait a minute. We have movement.
Yeah, they probably had to change out their battery.
Sorry about that.
There we go. No, so as we're talking about that, I think post-apocalyptic, a lot of people can appreciate. I also think people can appreciate when it's done in a fun and unique way. So that also helps. I'm sitting as I'm thinking about Maximum Apocalypse behind me, but I love in particular and could easily play over Zoom, actually, now that I think about it. But as you talk about this again, it looks like a fairly straightforward playing experience. So over Zoom, how do you mark in terms of movement and things like that? Any real challenges you run into?
Not really. We actually use another numbered thing. So we start in this corner in the center, and we'll go out our 4, we'll go out our 1, and we'll place the tiles have a landscape and then a resource, whether it be a bag or a backpack item or a melee weapon. We would just say we're placing that. And then the recon tokens are those little black tokens. So that we would just say, if we're placing it, we'll place the beaker, which is not what the official thing is, but that's what we call it. And so we just describe what we're doing. And that's a lot of the games is just describing what you're doing instead of just doing it. You're just be like, okay, this is what I'm doing.
And it's so story driven anyway. You're describing a lot anyway because you're reading story, and so it kind of blends together that way.
Which when I think about anything that has storytelling in it, and we're talking about Zoom too, is kind of fun because you're on the adventure together. There's some I don't know, some joy in that. To me, at least that's my perception when I think about it. It's like, we're going on this adventure together, and so in a time when especially we couldn't get out, that's kind of fun to think about in my mind.
For sure.
Oh yeah.
But you don't get to escape your pick.
Your number one.
Yeah, Kitty, you don't.
However, it's another really thematic and immersive game, and another really sort of big game. Sort of hard to figure out initially how to do, and then once we got going with it, it was really easy to do over Zoom.
Was this My Bridesmaid?
You may have mentioned it in your honorable mentions. It is Letters from Whitechapel.
Yes.
So this is probably the first sort of more hardcore game that I really became obsessed with. Brixby can attest to that. How many times I've had us play it back to back, and I discovered hidden movement, which is my favorite mechanic. So one person is playing Jack the Ripper and is trying to figure out what their route's going to be as all the murder and mayhem happens. And then everyone else is investigators. And you're trying to find what kind of route, what kind of movement Jack's been making. So it's really cool. I love it. Whether we're playing as Jack or an investigator, I think it's just a superb game.
For sure.
Does this, with this game, because it reminds me in the sense of Fury of Dracula,
Yes.
in the sense, so it tells me, yeah, you could take a game like Fury of Dracula and do the same type of thing. I used to own the 3rd edition, which I sold for like $120 before the not intentionally. I was kind of an idiot about it and just saw, oh, it's selling for a lot. I don't play this game. And then I later realized, oh, that's why, which is fine because I still have access to the game with other people. But I probably use that money to buy Gloomhaven, actually, which but yeah, it tells me, because I think that's one of the things, I don't think of those games where someone's hiding as easy to play over Zoom. But again, once you found a way. So I that hidden movement is tricky sometimes for some people just to grasp the basic idea, but you've done it over Zoom, which I love.
Yeah, and it's great. There's also on like Board Game Geek, there's maps and things that you can download as well. So
yeah,
if you're not having a copy, you can try.
I think that's a friendly reminder that we should put out too, is if you're looking for ways to play things remotely, a lot that's happened during the pandemic has been put online and said, okay, here's a way you can do it. The forums are a wonderful resource to find that information. Speaking of finding this information, I think it's really important to share just the fact, one, you're up to some amazing stuff. You're doing some great things, and let's just put some information on the board for you. If people want to learn more about what you're doing, longdistancegamers.com is the website. Anything in particular right now you're excited about that they can go check out? This is great. I want to make sure that you mentioned the video about Gloomhaven as an example, but anything new or anything exciting on your mind?
We did just do a top 10 recently, and we did have a conversation with Jamie as well about how to play Red Rising remoting a little bit. And nice. When we get our copy, we'll be doing that. We're really excited about Red Rising.
Yes.
And I'll also say we have a few playthroughs as well. We have a Gloomhaven playthrough and a partial Post-Human Saga playthrough, Canvas. So if you want to see them kind of in action, maybe
I just want to get a copy of Canvas to play, let alone.
It's fantastic. You have to.
Yeah, I heard they're having a second Kickstarter, so maybe you could.
That's probably where I'll end up with it. But look, and you mentioned Jamie Stegmeyer, who I can't wait to watch. I got to jump and watch that because Jamie is fantastic.
He is a really amazing person.
Yes, Jamie's been on this channel as well, and he's just really giving, especially I will say, to a smaller channel or a smaller outlet. He understands that they deserve a voice in it, and I think he's selective, but I definitely appreciate him. So I will remind people, please go ahead, subscribe to the YouTube channel. I definitely want to keep growing it and putting some more great content out. More people come up on Creators Corner. Frank West is going to be coming up. I'm in the process of bringing back Eric Slauson onto the show. Peter McPherson is going to be coming on a little bit later on. So these people are going to be coming back from the accessibility panel and trying to convince Brian. I don't know if he's here, but I'm trying to convince him to come on to the channel and do some good stuff about accessibility. So some more stuff on the way. Lizzie, Kitty, Brooks, want to take this moment again to say thank you so much for joining me tonight.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, you've just shared so much great info. So I hope everyone takes that away. And again, if you are watching this, please go ahead, check out their page, hit a like and a subscribe. And if you have any questions at this time, happy to take them. But other than that, I want to take a very quick moment. Just if you have questions, you can drop them now. But a quick moment to also reinforce something I've been saying. I partner a lot on this channel with Board Game Dads. He has tremendous content, everyone. Tremendous. And he's still under this 100 subs number, and it bugs me. So I really want to drive people over. So please go look up Board Game Dads. I have links to them all the time, and give him some love because he's creating some really interesting stuff. I know he shows up on the Dice Tower Board Game Breakfast sometimes. You can see him there, but he deserves some love. So with that said, I'm going to say thank you again to my guests, Lizzie, Kitty, and Brooks. And I'm going to, of course, say thanks to you for tuning in live for this conversation. And of course, welcome aboard the Express. I look forward to seeing you all very soon.